So then those things, the stories that you create in your head or the experience that like, what's going on here, you start sharing with others and you realize, oh, wait, that person's having that experience. And so it builds confidence basically by being in community with others in what would otherwise feel like a very lonely experience.
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She Talks Confidence
Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. I am Tony. I am a girl dad turned therapist turned women's confidence coach. Every week I bring on powerful, successful women. They talk about the confidence in certain different contexts. And this one's a good one today because as I am a big fan of supportive tribes and how important the community around you is in moving forward and growing and going through transition, especially when you get higher and more successful. It's even more important, which a lot of my clients haven't realized. So I want to welcome Marnie Hines to the show. Marnie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're on the show. You are a super accomplished over the years. Marnie is a leadership coach. She's a sales coach, author, facilitator. And I can go on and on, but I'm going to try to hit the high notes here. You have MH consulting and coaching. You were in the IT business for 20 plus some odd years.
Yeah, I did a combination of IT consulting as well as enterprise software sales.
Enterprise software sales. I know Google. I know you worked with Google, and then you were with Salesforce, for which everybody knows what Salesforce is. And the reason why I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this is because you have risen through the ranks in all of these. You were a Salesforce Women's Network. You were a part of the Women's Sales Pros, which is a very select upper C-suite level group of women professionals. And so you have been at the start. You have gone through that process of cultivating and balancing life and balancing career. And then you've gotten to the point where you are in a mentor stage, in a coach stage. And through all of that, when we had gone back and forth with the email before the show, one of your major points and major things you talk about and you deal with your clients is the importance of community, the importance of having a supportive tribe. So I would like for you to share your background, your story in terms of how you started, how you went through the ranks, and how your confidence was built, and then how that kind of incorporates within the importance of a community and importance of a tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, happy to share. I would say that my natural inclination is actually to just power through. I do have a tendency, I won't lie, to go it alone. What I have found over the course of time, and I'll give you like a couple of examples, is that when I'm in a period of transition or change, to try to figure it out on my own is going to take 10 times longer, so much more difficult than if I lean on people in my tribe, in my community, and that can take many forms. Probably the best example of it that's more recent would be making the choice to move into leadership at Salesforce. I realized at some point, if I was going to move into leadership there, I just raising my hand to say I wanted to be a leader was not going to be sufficient.
Oh, you mean that doesn't work?
No, it can for some people.
If you have the gumption to just do that and see if it works, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to actually seek guidance from others. And I went to a woman who's very highly regarded at Salesforce in the sales organization at Leader, and asked her for guidance. And the first thing she said was, do you actually know what a leader does in this company and what makes them successful? And so she pointed out the blind spot that I had as an individual contributor of, I know what a leader looks like reporting into someone who's a leader, but I don't actually know what it's like to be in that role. So I went around and interviewed, I think it was like 16, 17 different leaders at Salesforce who went from individual contributor to leader, to understand lessons learned, what it takes to be a great leader, and get their perspective. And I built a little mini tribe to then be able to move into leadership eventually. And it was actually one of those people that later tapped me or recommended me for a leadership role at Salesforce when it became available, because it's very rare that those positions actually become available. And then at some point I decided I also wanted to pursue coaching as a path. And I was in a state of transition, and I joined a women's mastermind group called Create Work You Love, professional women that were all in transition. And I used that community, that tribe of about 10 ladies, to help guide and direct how do I figure out and navigate what I want to do next when it's unclear and it's something I've never done before. So I found over recent years, like I absolutely have to have a community or a tribe when I'm in a state of transition. Otherwise, I feel a bit lost.
That brings up a good point because I'm like you. I'm the lone wolf at the beginning. I'm like, I can do it. If I can't do it myself, then I shouldn't be doing this type of a thing, which is not a great mentality to have. And I know a lot of my women clients have that mentality because they're almost afraid to ask questions because they feel as though they'll be looked upon as less than. It's that almost that inherent feeling of that. The thing you brought up, I think, is really important, and it's the importance of the tribe and community. But the thing is that changes, right? Through your transition and through your period of time. Did you search initially for a support group? Did you have one outside of work as you started to rise through the ranks and initially started into your business career at the beginning?
Yeah, it's a good question. I find, and I've gotten this guidance from others actually in some of the communities that I've been a part of, that you want to be intentional about the community and or communities that you're a part of at any given moment in time based on what your intention is for having that community. So at one point in time I was in a state of transition where having the support of other women that are in transition but maybe going in different directions is exactly what I needed to figure out for myself where I wanted to head. Where I'm at today, I find that the type of community that I need looks different. So you had mentioned women sales pros. It's a group of about 50 women that are in the sales profession, all have small businesses, there to support one another, meet regularly. And I have found that to be one of the most helpful communities that I've been a part of. Another one is called Pavilion, which is for people that are in the tech industry, often in sales, marketing, or customer success, so go to market functions. And I find that community is a place where I can still feel like a sense of belonging to the place that I left recently, which is Salesforce, as I move into this other business of coaching. And so feel still connected to that community and understanding I can learn from what's happening and at the same time grow with them. So you get exposed to what you don't know alongside other people so it doesn't feel so lonely and often in a safe place where other people are going through a shared experience.
A lot of my clients look at community or tribe as just your tribe. And there's a lot of loyalty at the very beginning with my younger clients that are just getting out of college or school and starting up their career. And they have their group and they've got their friends more so than, and then they start getting business friends as they go through maybe lower level execs or whomever that they're currently working with, and they'll start the process through that. And did you realize pretty early that the group that you had initially wasn't helping you or wasn't really working with you when you went through that transition?
It's a good question. I would say it's both. And what I mean by that is what came before and the people that have been part of my career trajectory up to this point, I have found for some people can at moments in time be wildly beneficial in either mentoring me, helping me figure out where I'm headed next, be a sounding board, and they know where I've come from. And at the same time, if I'm reaching for something a bit more than the place where I currently am, then I have to go outside of that community. So relying on the place where maybe I'm currently employed is going to some it's helpful and at the same time it's going to give me a limited purview and perspective on what's happening. And if I'm reaching for something a bit more, then being exposed to that something more and being in community with those people that represent the bigger thing that I'm aiming for is going to be the thing that's helpful. So the Women Sales Pros is a great example. It's a group of women who have already started their own businesses and are wildly successful. And if that's what I'm reaching for, being part of a community like that, even though it might not be the thing that I come from, is going to be the thing that's going to most benefit me. And the only person that can seek that out is you. It's not often going to be provided by your employers.
A huge point, right? The fact that you really have to, if you're going to do something or create the foundation and create the support, you're going to have to create it yourself. You're going to have to go out and search for that, which actually points out another very important aspect of this. And one of the missing pieces that my younger clients, my women clients have, especially the professional clients that I have, is that they don't realize that you need perhaps more than one tribe, if that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm,
And they just look at, I got the people around me and they're supporting me, and that's who my BFF or whatever, and I've got my work friend, and then they're okay with that. Then they start running up against things to where it's that whole adage where if you want to be smart, hang out with people smarter than you.
mhm.
If you
Yeah.
want to grow, hang out with people that are more successful or
Mhm,
richer or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I think that's a big missing piece, and I know that I've had to point that out to a number of my clients that but in order to get to where you want to go, you perhaps may need to make or create another group, which is interesting because people look at it in a very binary way, either or type, or this is my group, or then I have to ditch them all and get a new group or thing. But that's not the case, is it?
No, I would, and as you're sharing, it's funny. I'm like, this is not an uncommon experience. And I would say, I've even felt some of this myself. I remember on occasion sharing with people when I was at Salesforce, I was there for 12 years. So to choose something as my next step professionally for myself that's outside of that environment felt very foreign. But I'll be honest, for me, and I then projected that on others. I'm like, oh, if
Mhm.
I'm choosing this other thing that I want to do, then I no longer belong in this place called Salesforce. And I felt like
Right.
it's almost I'm not being loyal to them. And the reality is, you can both be part of your current experience in your current tribe and community, and you can also belong to other tribes that reflect what you're reaching for. Yeah, if you're aiming for something that's a bit bigger, a little bit beyond where you're at today, it's so important to take the initiative for yourself. And it is possible to do both. Like it's expanding your identity a bit. Um,
100%, right?
yeah.
It's just
Mhm.
it's getting out there and putting yourself out there. So all that being the case, and you've established the importance of that, when you coach or you mentor younger women that are going through this process, how do you point out the necessary or the needs of having a supportive group like that? And then do you have any suggestions in terms of how to cultivate or how to create supportive community?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things in there. So one, often I would say it depends on the coaching client that I'm working with. There's obviously going to be variation. So there's sometimes a coaching client where I'm recognizing or acknowledging the thing that the person's reaching for is above and beyond the place where they are today, and there's a lot of holes or gaps in knowledge and understanding of. There's a general awareness of I'm aiming for this next role that looks like this. And then I start asking questions. What is the ideal boss or leader? And what's the culture? And what's so many questions that are unknowns. And it's, oh, the place where you're going to find that information is in community with others. So there could be a more formal professional community where you can find that information, which is more of a seeking out and doing a bit of research on what are the professional communities that reflect and represent and give you the knowledge, skill, understanding, and sense of belonging to that thing that you're reaching for before you've even gotten there. I can sometimes notice the gaps, and I'll point that out on behalf of clients and suggest it
Mhm.
belonging to a community to close those gaps. Moving into leadership is another example. There's communities of female leaders. Chief, I'm a part of that community. It's a women's leadership network. So it's a place to go and be in community with other female leaders so it doesn't feel quite so lonely and share experiences with them. So I think it depends on the experience that the person's having. And then there's also the self kind of organized and or curated sort of communities that you can create or tribe or however you want to think of it. So maybe what's most needed in the moment is getting guidance or feedback from someone who knows you really well and has prior experience working with you. It's almost like a mentorship type role. So it's really what's going to most serve the client in the moment. And sometimes it's a formalized community, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's a more of a curated, self organized kind of experience of people that have known you for years that is what you most need.
Yeah, it's layered. It's not just having a certain 5 or 6 people around you and then moving through. It's about really cultivating and looking at it from what your needs are at any particular step. And you brought up a couple important things. One of the things that I wanted to bring out was the fact that you don't know what you don't know type of a
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
to
yeah,
where
yeah.
and I always tell my clients, I said, it's like you're sitting, you're hanging out in front of the house. And then I ask you, what color's the couch in my living room? And of course, I know what color the couch is, my living room. But they're like, I don't know. I go, well, that's the whole point. you're trying to guess what the questions are before you get into the living room type of a thing. And you don't, right? And so that's why mentorship is so important and so powerful, because they've been there. You have been there. You understand what the questions that need to be asked that maybe somebody that hasn't been in there doesn't have the nuance or the understanding to ask those questions. And that's how you can nip it right in the butt, right? You can save so much time and so much energy by getting into a tribe, getting into a community that has mentorship, women that have been there before and know the questions even before you do.
Mm-hmm. They'll point out the things you wouldn't, like to your point, that you wouldn't even think to ask. So they're filling in the holes. If it's a puzzle, they're putting in the puzzle pieces for you.
Right. But talk about an expeditious way to get through stuff. And that's like the express way in, because instead of learning the hard way, some people have done, like probably yourself and certain things, you've got your questions answered and you can help them out along the way. The other thing that you brought up is really interesting. And I know from my younger clients, they don't understand the fact that the higher you go, the more success you have. And this isn't just like a linear track in business. This is business or life. The more you need the support, because it's almost like you get up in the ether and there are less and less women that have gone there or that can understand where you're at. And that's why it gets way more important as you grow, right? Has that has been your experience?
Yeah, I was going to share too. This keeps bubbling up the topic, so I'm going to bring it up. I was just with a group of women in community, and we were just sharing on the topic of imposter syndrome. And you would think that, oh, you get to the C level and you've made the ranks and you got to that one role that you were aiming for, and then it vanishes, that thing called imposter syndrome, because you've nailed it, you got there. And the reality is, it's still present. And one of the ways in which imposter syndrome can dissolve and you can feel more confident in what it is that you're doing, the experience that you're having, is to be in community with others who are similar to you in that experience. So then those things, the stories that you create in your head, or the experience that, like, what's going on here, you start sharing with others and you realize, oh wait, that person's having that experience. And so it builds confidence basically by being in community with others in what would otherwise feel like a very lonely experience being at the top, because that imposter syndrome is something that's happening at the subconscious level. So there are creative ways that you can counter it and feed your brain other messages that, you know, you're actually having a similar experience as others.
It's a little sad. It's interesting. Research has shown that women have the way more prevalent in terms of the feeling of the imposter syndrome, and the higher that they go, the more they question the worth and the abilities. Do you still see that now as prevalent as it used to be? And what's your personal opinion in terms of why that's still around, even though we have the research and we have really good mentors out there like yourself? Why are women continually buying into that false narrative?
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm like, I think I shared this pre-call. I was like, I don't love the term imposter syndrome. The reason is because if you think about it, as you keep going up the ranks, like, you're pushing the limits of your comfort zone in a way. And so really what's happening is you're pushing the boundaries, and yet there aren't as many people to go to validate the experience that you're having, and it feels very lonely. So I think that part of what imposter syndrome is simply about is being constantly in a state of pushing the boundaries of what you already know. And I think that's actually something that should be celebrated. It's, oh wow, you're learning
Yeah,
something
for
new.
reals.
You're
Yeah.
becoming an expert in something new. You're not just like high achievers, top performers. They're people that are constantly pushing the boundaries of what they already know and seeking what's new and what's different to get even better results. And I think there's more celebration that needs to be happening around that topic than than there is what actually happens, which is fear. Am I doing this right? Am I going to fail, etc.? Which is, I actually think, why community is so important, to allow people to experience that, oh, these thoughts that are going on in my head are actually the same thoughts other people are having.
Because that's the only difference. The only difference is that the fear will creep up, yet they embrace the fear and the understanding that they're pushing boundaries, and then they get excited about it instead of getting scared about it and stopping. And having community and having that tribe of women that have been there, or women that are going through the same thing, and can create a level of empathy in terms of the journey, just shows them that, hey, it's okay to take the step into the unknown. It's all
Mhm.
right. And it's going to benefit you in the long run, whether you fall on your face, which you and I know that happens a lot because that's the whole point of growth is you fall flat on your face, but you get up and you just try something a little bit different. And if you don't do that, then you're going to sit there and live in regret. And for the clients that I deal with, if they do stop or if they do regress, that imposter syndrome gets worse,
Mhm.
and it just
Yeah.
creates even a more, and then it creates a depression. It creates a self-esteem issue, and then you have to dig yourself out of that. Now, given all of that great discussion in terms of the importance of community, the importance of tribe, the imposter syndrome, the need for support even more so as you go up the ladder, let's pivot a little bit towards the family or the life balance, a life work life balance type of a thing. Where do you put the personal life community tribe thing in relation to the business?
Yeah, it's so funny in the way that you just shared it because I'll go back to something I shared earlier, and that I almost, as you're describing that, put it in the middle between the two. And
Hmm.
the reason probably is, and this is might be personal, but I am in community just as much to support myself as a person outside of work as it is in my professional life. Because as a person, I really love learning, growing. I was actually in a PhD program in communication,
Hmm.
several years ago. So I had this idea of going into academia because I love teaching and mentoring. And so to fill my cup from a learning and growth standpoint, I feel like community offers that because I can't learn just by reading books. I need to learn through others as well. And often I
Mm-hmm.
learn for myself personally in ways that are experiential by applying the things that I've learned. So part of the community is a personal fulfillment for me. And then the
Mm-hmm.
other part often is professional as well, because I have noticed in reflecting like a lot of the communities that are more formalized that I'm a part of are professional in nature and sit just outside of like the formal place of employment that I've had, just as a way to push myself to become the best version of myself, both professionally and personally. Sometimes you need to look outside of the place where you currently are. And I think that also helps as a way to say, oh, this is just another professional thing that's taking up my time. If I can blend the two, then it actually feels like it's worth the time and energy that I'm spending on it.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at it not maybe as integrated, like all smushed together, but definitely something you have to consider both at the same time because it's both running, it's parallel lifelines, and one's going to impact the other whether you want it to or not. And so it's a matter of understanding both of them in context in terms of it both working for you in your life and in the growth and in the vision in terms of where you want to go. My younger clients, 25 to 35 ish, typically going through that. Okay, my first job is it's not working for me anymore. I need to transition out type of a thing, or my relationship isn't panning out. It's my 25, my 30, I'm not hitting the things I want to hit. What's the red flag that signals, yeah, I need to either change my tribe or I need to go out and search for a community? Is there like one big thing that comes out in terms of like clients that you're like, oh no, you got to change things up or you got to get a supportive group here?
Yeah, it's so funny. There's probably a couple of things that come to mind. So one would be this is a very simple, but if what you're currently doing isn't working, do something else. Like it's that
You know
simple.
what? It's simple, but it's so true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will rely on what they've been doing up to this point, and I've noticed the same thing, is that a lot of times people are relying on the solely like your current job or employer and anything that came before in your group of friends. And it's a very small group of people and community to rely on for the thing that you're going to be aiming for next. So maybe a lot of people haven't pushed themselves to actually try leveraging community and new communities as a way to then push their own boundaries. I would say the other thing too that I've noticed is this is an indicator that's, oh my God, red flag, you need community,
Like
which
a big
is
one, right?
a big one. Yeah. It's one of those big ones where it's not uncommon and I come from the tech sales world. And so it's super high pressure, lots of stress. And it's not uncommon for there to be good pockets and bad pockets in a company, or psychological safety is an issue, or there's a toxic work environment. So
Mhm.
when you are in that environment, you feel very alone in that experience often. And so that is one of those red flag indicators of take a look and see what's happening, acknowledge what is, and seek community and support, because it's so important in those moments to, even though it feels like the thing that you most want to do is to retreat and go into that place that feels lonely and how is this happening to me? It's actually going to be more beneficial to seek community, because what will end up happening is you'll find other people have had similar experiences and how did they get through that? And you'll feel like you're part of something bigger than that experience that is not so positive in the moment.
So it's almost like the second you feel as though you're alone in something, or you're looking around and I don't feel like I have support, that's the second that you need to like be proactive and create something around you.
Yeah. And I would also say another example would be if you're aiming for something that's much bigger than where you're at today. It's a pushing against something that's not working for you, but also reaching towards something that's bigger than anything you've done before. It's tough to get there on your own. It's much easier to achieve together.
Yeah, that's the mic drop. I'm leaving it there. That's awesome. Marnie, seriously, that was just incredible. And I was going to bring that up because that was like one of your things, but that's perfect. Marnie Heinz with MH Consulting and Coaching, actually the CEO and founder of that, a leadership coach, author, facilitator. Where can somebody find you and what services do you offer?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to find me is go to LinkedIn. There's a way for you to schedule time for a strategy call, 30-minute strategy call with me from LinkedIn. And then also you can access my website from there. And the types of services that I offer include one-on-one coaching, group coaching, workshops. I'm also doing training in emotional intelligence to help leaders become more emotionally intelligent in serving their employees and improving.
Oh man, that need to be taught, right? Emotional intelligence. You talk about lacking in the corporate environment, just from my own personal experience. So it's Marnie Heinz, MarniHeinz.com, right? That's your website. And then on LinkedIn, are you just Marnie Heinz on LinkedIn, or what's?
Oh. Yeah, Marni Hines. There aren't that many of me, so
I was going to say, what? That sounds simple with Heinz. That sounds pretty, but that's, of course, there's not. There's nobody like you, Marnie. But that's not what we're saying in terms of the uniqueness of the name. So it's MarnieHeinz.com or Marnie Heinz on LinkedIn. Thanks so much. And then, of course, I will put all the information in the show notes as I usually do. So they'll be in there. And then you can get a hold of me at TonyDufresne.com. If you can't spell that, because nobody can, then you can get a hold of me at theconfidencedoc.com. And if you have any comments or questions or some of your interesting comments, just throw it out there. It's fun to read them. It's Tony at The Confidence Doc. It's YouTube or all of the popular podcast platforms. Thanks again, Marnie. I really appreciate it. This is huge. It's such an important component, especially for women going through the ranks, and just the understanding of how important tribe and community is essential and needed. It's not an option. It's just needed. So I really appreciate your time on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we will talk to you next week.